Judges, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Larry Fulton. I'm 15 years old and I'm a sophomore at Hawken School. I live in Pepper Pike in Ohio, and the topic of my oration is honoring the sacrifice. I'm currently a student at Hawken School. Because that's a private school, it means that my education isn't free, and that my parents have to pay to provide for me the opportunity to go there. Now, we are not wealthy, so paying for private school is a significant sacrifice for my parents, but it's one that they make so that they can secure a bright future for me and those in my family who come after me. So sometimes when I just don't feel like putting in that extra effort into a history project or submitting the third draft of my English paper, I have to stop and think about how I'd be dishonoring my parents' sacrifice if I didn't put forth 110% effort into all of my schoolwork. But, as much as I love Mom and Dad and appreciate everything that they do for me, I do have to say that their sacrifice is purely financial. They're not being threatened with violence so that I can go to school. They're not being beaten or jailed for my education. They're not risking their lives so that I can have equal opportunity in America. But someone did. That someone was Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. This great theologian, orator, and civil rights leader had a dream of freedom, equality, and equal opportunity for all Americans. And it's hard for me to even comprehend how much of a profound impact that dream has had on the lives of so many people. But think about everything Dr. King sacrificed for that dream. He endured physical assault. He was beaten, jailed, spat upon. His house was even bombed. And his entire family had to live under constant threat of violence. Dr. King was truly a remarkable man who was even willing to make the ultimate sacrifice for each and every one of us. And on April 4th, 1968, in Memphis, Tennessee, he did. So I'm speaking to you today to ask, are we, as an integrated community with more and more opportunities, are we doing everything in our power to take advantage of those opportunities that were given to us through the sacrifices of Dr. King? Now, clearly many of us are. You've heard about who's in the White House, but when you look at broader statistics, such as incarceration rates, voting statistics, and high school dropout rates, to name a few, there's clearly more that we collectively can be doing. I'm sure if Dr. King were here today, he'd tell us that he didn't lead a movement 50 years ago just for Barack Obama. That's great and everything, don't get me wrong. But he did it so that we would all have an opportunity to achieve. And if we don't all take that opportunity and run with it, we're not honoring his sacrifice. So I'm speaking to you today to ask, are we as a community honoring that sacrifice? So what do I really mean when I talk about honoring the sacrifice? Well, for those of us in my generation, it can start with doing our best in school. Each and every one of us should absolutely refuse to contribute to the staggering high school dropout rate in our country. It's a well-known fact that higher high school dropout rates lead to more unemployment, and that higher unemployment rates lead to higher poverty rates. So really, when we all focus more on our education, we are uplifting entire communities. So if that means submitting that third draft of your English paper, or even your fifth, do it. Because due to the sacrifices of so many good people, you can. For those of us who are old enough, another great way to take advantage of our opportunities is by taking advantage of our right to vote, a right that people fought and died for. For those of us who are familiar with the voters' rights marches from Selma to Montgomery and Alabama, we know that protesters were beaten and gassed in the streets for the right to vote. We also know that those protesters, led by Dr. King himself, were absolutely instrumental in providing voting rights for all Americans. Just think. We all have the ability, the power in our hands to elect representatives like presidents, mayors, judges, leaders who can further Dr. King's ideals and continue to move our country in the direction of his dream. When you start to think about how significant the ability to freely vote is, it's easy to fully appreciate everything Dr. King and those who worked with him have done for each and every one of us. So, as I conclude, I'd just like to remind us to all stay mindful of Dr. King's legacy, his dream, and his sacrifices. And not just on his birthday or even the entire month of February, but every single day of the year. And I hope that we'll all continue to honor his sacrifice by striving to be the people he would want us to be, the people his sacrifice allows us to be. I know that things still aren't perfect in America, but while there may be many obstacles, there are simply no excuses. The only question is, will we honor the sacrifice? Thank you.
Thank you, Larry, for that, I would say, indictment of us, for us to honor the sacrifice, and reminding us that when Dr. King